Here it comes. Swinging a fly ball left field. Back in this one, Lyle to the warning track at the wall. It's gone. And the Rockies lead 8-7. Home run number 31 for Goodman breaks the tie here in the bottom of the eighth.
Dave Jagler last night on the call in Denver. Tough loss, tough late loss for the Nats. That eighth inning homer broke that tie. The bullpen really didn't implode necessarily like it has in the past. The game was a competitive game throughout. The Nats had an early lead, 2-0, but never a big lead that they blew. 8-7 to the Rockies. They'll play the last of their three games in Denver later on this afternoon. Good morning, everybody. Steve Sands will be a guest on the show today at 11 a.m. Some Bryson DeChambeau talk for sure with Steve. And yes, I will get to the RG3 stuff from over the weekend. This from Frankie44. Frankie44 writes, Sheehan, how have you not talked about Bobby Three Sticks? I love Bobby Three Sticks. I don't know who dubbed him Bobby Three Sticks. I think it was Doc. How have you not talked about Bobby Three Sticks and his stupid video the other day? It's mind-shattering that you haven't talked about it with all of the Ayuk video reviewing. Mind-shattering. I don't know about that. Yeah, we're going to get to it. I promise. I've had it on my list every single day, and we've just gotten a little carried away with some other things. But I know how many of you want to weigh in on, I guess looking back to 2012. We've done it a few times over the years, but yeah, it was a bit delusional per usual for him to try to rewrite history with that video. And I'm not even sure what was real and what wasn't. Was that really his Rookie of the Year trophy sitting on the chair behind where he sat down? I mean, getting up in full uniform. I don't know. We'll get to it later on in the program. I promise. This from Dell. Dell writes, Kevin, you're my guy, but no way I go Myles Garrett over Micah Parsons. Dell is writing because yesterday we talked about the hypothetical of you get to pick one player from the NFL, any of the other 31 teams on offense and on defense with no cost considerations, no salary cap considerations, and place them on our team here in Washington. And I picked Myles Garrett and I picked Justin Jefferson. Max selected Myles Garrett as well, and then selected Jackson Smith-Njigba. A lot of answers on calls and a lot of answers on social media. I'll give you the most interesting answer to that question that I got on social media here early in the show. I'm going to get to that. I don't know why I didn't write that down before, but there was a very odd one, I thought. But anyway, Dell writes, Kevin, you're my guy, but no way I go Myles Garrett over Micah Parsons. Parsons is today's version of LT, and I know how much you love LT. And then he writes, Jefferson over Chase is a tough call, but Parsons is younger, and he's the next number 56 in the NFL. I've heard that comparison before of Micah Parsons to Lawrence Taylor. I mean, part of me just wants to give you the Belichick answer, which would be, hey, we're talking about Lawrence Taylor here, right? We're talking about Lawrence Taylor. I forget the player that was brought up during that top 100, list a few years ago when they did the 100 players, greatest 100 players of all time. And in the conversation, somebody brought up another player, another outside linebacker. And was that player, close? It may have been Derek Thomas, now that I think about it. And, Belichick, respectful, just said, yeah, no, we're talking about Lawrence Taylor now. We're talking about LT. LT, for me, I've said this many times, in my lifetime of watching the NFL, is the greatest player I have ever watched. Not defensive player. I don't know that any player impacted the game more than he did during his time. He was that great. And for you youngins, Just go to the LT highlight reels on YouTube. I mean, there was just nothing like him. And I don't think there's been anything like him since. Look, I think Micah Parsons is a ridiculous talent. Ridiculous talent. And I do get the similarities in the way they use outrageous athleticism to get results. And Parsons has had insane years, right? He's got 65 sacks in 5 seasons. Micah Parsons does. That's unbelievable. And he played only in 14 games last year before he got hurt. Or he played in 14. I thought he missed more games than that. But 65 sacks in 5 seasons. And he's missed games here the last 2 years and still gone for 12 and 12 and a half each year. He's insane. There's something about Parsons, though, when he isn't rushing the quarterback, where I feel like it's not all there. And wasn't that sort of the write-up on him on the linebacker list on ESPN? I think it was something about, hold on, I'm going to read it here. Edge rusher, because Parsons was number 2. Yeah. It wasn't him. Who was I thinking of? I'm forgetting who I was thinking of in terms of not always, he takes plays off. I think he does occasionally if the opportunity to rush the passer isn't there. By the way, will he be ready for the season? Probably not, right?
I don't believe he is.
That ACL tear came in December. For whatever reason, I thought it came earlier. Look, he's dominant. I honestly would take Will Anderson Jr. over Parsons. I would. And they're essentially the same age. Parsons is probably a year or two older. Actually, here it is. Parsons 27. Will Anderson Jr. is still 24. I would take Will Anderson Jr. over Parsons. But that was the fun part of talking about this yesterday. Myles Garrett to me is still arguably, take the quarterback position out, I think he's still right now, pound for pound, the best player in the game at 30 years old. And seeing him on a team that's good this coming season is going to be exciting to watch. Unfortunately, they're in the NFC. I wish he were still on an AFC team. The Rams are loaded. So yesterday on the show, and this is where I really want to get into this first hour. Yesterday on the show, we had Liam Griffin, who covers the team for the Washington Times, on the show. And I asked Liam, give me the player on the roster of all of the new players. Okay, so if we take all of the new additions, and by the way, I don't want to include any draft picks with this. I want to talk about the free agent acquisitions, which should get judged faster than the actual draft picks. Draft picks are young players. It takes time for these young players. I mean, we're all expecting Sonny Styles to be a significant contributor and be a really good player as a rookie. I think there is some optimism about Antonio Williams, but more often than not, it takes time for young players. I want to focus in on the additions that they made through free agency. Defensively, Tim Settle, Adafe Owe, Leo Chenal, Caleb Von Chason, Nick Cross, Amik Robertson. Offensively, looking at Rashad White, looking at Chigakonkwo as the two primary additions offensively. And I do think that we're going to get to the end of 2026 and think that, and maybe before then, and think that Adam Peters made a mistake with a player or two. I mean, they just added too many players for all of them to hit. They added more new players than any team in the league through free agency. They spent the third most money of any team in free agency. That's what sometimes irritates me with those that say they didn't try hard enough in free agency. They didn't do enough in free agency. This was a terrible team. What are you talking about? They added more new players than any team in the league. They spent top 3 money of any team in the league in free agency. So, and they tried to spend more and tried to add more. We know that with Pierce. We know that with Dobbs. We know that with maybe even Trey Hendrickson. We may even know that to a certain degree with Tyler Linderbaum in terms of, potential big money guys. So it's not like they were very productive, and they tried to be even more productive during the offseason. This is the thing that sometimes some of you don't understand. Free agency is not the draft. You don't get to pick whoever you want, and they have to play for you. You can pick a player that you like, and then you try to convince him that this is the right place because he chooses where he goes. So you're not going to get everybody, and they didn't get everybody, but they got a lot of people. And the bottom line is when you add that many players in free agency, 1 or 2 of them are not going to work out. And let's hope it's not more than 1 or 2. 1 or 2 would be normal in a class like this, maybe even 3. If 3 of the players end up not playing as much, not contributing much at all, that's probably normal for a class their size. That's not what I'm asking. Which player do you think will fail? I'm looking for the player that you're most confident in won't fail. The player with the highest floor, so to speak. The player that feels like it would be shocking if that player didn't produce in a positive way for this team. It's not just the player, right? It's the opportunity. It's the position. It's the opportunity that they have at that position. Like, I think it's really obvious that Chigakonkwo has an opportunity to be a productive player. There's nobody else that's going to be on the field as the first primary tight end pass catcher as of now. It's not going to be Bates. It's not going to be Sinnott. I don't think it's going to be Yankoff. Those are the tight ends on the roster. I do, and I've said this a couple of times about what I think they think. There is a player at tight end, Lawrence Cager, number 89, that I think they believe is an NFL pass-catching tight end. Whether or not he does the other things at an NFL level, I guess we'll find out. He'll struggle to make the team, but it wouldn't surprise me if he does. But Okonkwo has this opportunity that isn't really going to be contested. And I think the same goes on defense for Nick Cross, who I also think is a very good player. So at 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Of the new additions, not rookies, okay, the new free agent acquisitions, a lot of them, De'Ami Brown, Van Jefferson, Chigakonkwo, Rashad White, Tim Settle, Charles Omenihu, Adafe Owe, Leo Chenal, Chason, Witherspoon, Cross, Amik Robertson, Rasul Douglas recently. Of all of these free agent additions, who do you feel most confident in terms of they got it right and he'll be an absolute positive contributor to this team this year? So in essence, the player right now with the highest floor, the least chance of busting. We can do the most chance of busting another day. We have plenty of those days ahead. But I think it's an interesting question because there's so many of them, and all of them have different opportunities, and some of them are at positions in which, like linebacker now, all of a sudden, there are a lot of linebackers on this team. I'll give you my answer when we come back. Max will give you his answer when we come back. Phone lines are open, 301-230-0980. Of their new players, who are you most confident in terms of that player is absolutely going to produce? And the chances of busting are 0. 301-230-0980. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show on 980 and the team 980.com. Give me the player of all of the new players signed in free agency, and there are a lot of them. Odafe Owe was the guy that got the most money, a 4-year deal worth nearly $100 million. Chiga Okonkwo signed a 3-year deal. Leo Chenal signed a 3-year deal. Tim Settle signed a 3-year deal. Then your 2-year deals were Amik Robertson and Nick Cross. Kayvon Chason, Marcus Mariota is an existing player, so I don't want draft picks, and I don't want players who were here previously. All right, I want the new players. Charles Omenihu signed a 1-year deal. Rashad White, a 1-year deal. De'Ami Brown, a 1-year deal. Witherspoon, a 1-year deal. Jefferson, Ford, Ferkser now, and Rasul Douglas, all on 1-year deals. Give me the player of all of the new players that you feel the safest with. You feel like there's no chance this guy's going to do anything other than produce. He may not be the best of the group, but he's got the highest floor. There's no chance that he's not going to be a meaningful contributor. There's no chance Adam Peters is going to look bad on signing this guy. I have a couple of them, but there's one in particular that I've been thinking about for a while now for a number of reasons, and I'll share that with you. But phone lines are open. I want to know what you say. 301-230-0980. I got this. I promised that I would get to this. This one player that I thought was odd in terms of adding a new player to our roster from another team with no cap considerations. The segment we did yesterday. Josh in Georgetown writes, I really enjoyed the pick 2 players from the league segment, but hear me out on this. I'm a Jaden Daniels fan, but he is a guy who might not be able to stay healthy. He's also not as good as Josh Allen, who hasn't missed many games throughout his career. I would select Josh Allen off of Buffalo's roster. Nobody went that route, Max, yesterday. Nobody went that route.
It's true, not a soul.
Yeah. You know, I mean, as much as I love Jaden Daniels, Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes right now are above him, clearly. And Josh Allen is just different, man. So is Mahomes. I get where you're coming from, Josh. You didn't do it at the, because you don't like Jaden Daniels. You did it because it's the most important position on the field, and Josh Allen's better right now than Jaden Daniels and more durable. I went to look this up. He has not missed a game for injury since his rookie season. That's pretty amazing. Because Mahomes just got hurt. Lamar gets hurt. Burrow gets hurt. Pretty much every quarterback in the league gets hurt. I mean, we talk about the possibility that Jaden may have some injury issues moving forward. So do the best quarterbacks in the game, not named Josh Allen. I guess Jared Goff hasn't gotten hurt much. Matt Stafford's been hurt for sure. He's missed games. All right. So my player, in terms of the player that I think has the highest floor, the player that I'm most confident in, and there are a couple of them that are, it's a close call here, but I feel really good about Nick Cross at safety. Nick Cross is a really good football player. And the reason they signed Nick Cross is that he is always available. He is an excellent tackler. And boy, were they looking for an upgrade in tackling, especially on the back end. He's got some size to him. He's got a real physical way in which he plays in the box. And the other thing, too, is I think his versatility is there. If you want to drop him, he can play free safety for you as well. I think Nick Cross is a safe bet to be A, a starter, and B, a high-level producer. Like, it's not going to surprise me if he is top 2 or 3 in tackles. So Nick Cross is my guy. There are a couple that were close. a couple of them that were really close. But Nick Cross is my guy, Max. I feel the best of all the new guys, and this has nothing to do with the contracts either, okay? This just has to do with, of the players they signed, who do you feel the best about in terms of not much of a chance of busting? For me, it is Nick Cross. What about you? By the way, that was Liam's answer, too, to the question.
Okay, yes. Interesting. I mean, I know you love your Terps, so I know it was a tough call between Nick Cross and Chig Okonkwo. I'm going to take Chig just because of how how centric he's going to be, I think, in this offense. We saw it last year with a lot of Zach Ertz, the safety blanket. I mean, the past 2 years, really, he's been Jaden Daniels' binky, his baby, his blanket, just the go-to guy. And I think Chig's going to be that in a much more elevated way, just because Chig's a lot younger than Zach Ertz, a lot more athletic than Zach Ertz. So I'm very excited to see how David Blau kind of centers this offense around guys like Chig Okonkwo. Another guy, I mean, De'Ami Brown I'm very confident in him just because he's a fast guy. He's a burner over the top, and we were kind of missing that for a lot of last year. So I think that's going to be a helpful addition as well.
I think honestly, Cross and Chig Okonkwo are the two, and yes, they are Terps. It's not why I picked Cross and not why I considered seriously picking Chig.
Sure.
I mean, yeah, I love former Terps, don't get me wrong, but if I thought that, De'Ami Brown or Tim Settle or somebody else was the best or that had the highest floor, I would have said them. I just think that the opportunities there are just so obvious. I mean, Chig Okonkwo hasn't gotten hurt. He's always available. And this is a guy that basically was signed to start and be the number one pass-catching tight end in this offense and probably be the second most targeted pass catcher in this offense. So unless he has, the yips and starts dropping balls and they aren't able to scheme things open for him, I don't see him having anything but a very productive season. I think his floor is exceptionally high. But, man, Nick Cross, first of all, you plug him in at a safety position where they need help. Look, I love Jeremy Reeves. I think Reeves is going to play a lot more than some people do. And I do, I appreciate Quan Martin. I appreciate Will Harris. Nick Cross will be the best tackler of anybody on the back end. And Quinn talked about tackling and missed tackles and all of the different things that happen defensively, but they have to tackle better. One of the worst tackling teams in the NFL last year. Nick Cross can tackle, and he'll hit, and he'll be in that box, and they'll send him too. He can be a pass rusher, but he's also not that bad as a free safety. There's just too much solid there with Nick Cross. I like Okonkwo is the other, I think, obvious answer. All right, 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Out of all of the 17, I added them up. There were 17 new free agents added to this roster. You go down and then, by the way, they signed several of their own as well. Marcus Mariota, Chris Paul, Antonio Hamilton, Trent Scott. So they kept some of their own as well in free agency. But 17 new players from other teams. De'Ami counts as another team. Give me the player on that list that you feel has the highest floor, you feel the most confident in, won't disappoint. Has nothing to do with the contract, just the play on the field. Samaj, go ahead.
Thanks for taking my call, as always, Max. Beautiful violator on it once again. Hell to the W, all that. Let's get to talking football. I got to go to the hell to the W, coach. For me, offense, I went with two. I went with each side of the ball. Chig on offense, as you said, it's kind of obvious. I went with Chig on offense. And my defensive guy, I was close. Me and you, Kevin, were in the same realm, but different guy. I went with Amik Robinson.
Okay.
Based on what we've gone through with Forbes, and then getting MC Bluffmaster from New Orleans. I don't even want to call his name because it's a complete waste of time. The contract.
Lattimore.
Yeah.
For those not following
Between
along.
those two debacles, Yeah, I think the new DC wouldn't have pointed him out. If I'm not mistaken, he was his first known acquisition that literally came from the new DC, if I'm not mistaken. I think Amik Robertson was the one he targeted as his first free agent to bring on the squad.
I don't remember. I'm not disputing it. I don't remember which. I would hope that Durante Jones likes all of them, but you might be right. There may be a quote in there that said, he really
I might be wrong too. But
no,
I think
it's fine.
I'm pretty sure. I think that's what I heard. But either way, I'm going with Amik Robertson on D and Chig on O. Thanks for taking my calls as always, fellas. Appreciate you. Peace.
I think right now, that's another one of those where it looks like that's an immediate opportunity. Like, how are you going to, if he can play, how are you going to keep him off the field? Because he's your third corner. We think he might be one of the top two, but he appears to be more of a nickel slot corner, your third corner behind Sanderstill and Amos. And so that opportunity is there. It's going to be interesting to see what a veteran like Rasul Douglas brings to this camp and whether or not they get to the point where it's like, yeah, he just knows how to play this position right now at a level where some of our young guys aren't quite there yet. But I like Amik Robertson as the pick. It's a good one. Let's go to Nick in Virginia Beach. Nick, which of the new free agent acquisitions do you feel like has the least chance of busting?
Hey, what's going on, Kevin? What's up, Max?
How are you?
I'm doing well. For me, it's Leo Chenal. I feel really good about him because for like two big reasons. Number one, he's gotten better every season that he's had, and he's a versatile player. He can go after the quarterback. He can drop back in coverage. And he's also coming from a disciplined defense in Kansas City. And when you put him next to a guy with the raw athleticism of Sonny Styles, I just don't see how he's ever caught in a no man's land where he's set up for failure. I think he's only going to be set up for success, and he already has what it takes defensively in coverage, speed-wise, quick twitch, to actually make an impact on this defense. And it can't be worse than last year.
I love the idea of Chenal on this field, just, with his quick burst, his speed, his physicality. It's kind of the same way I felt about Luvu before last year, off of Luvu's first year. It's good. They've got some options there, it would seem. Do they have Fred Warner on the field? Probably not. But do they have a number of players who can be really solid to better than solid? Chenal, Luvu, Styles, obviously. I think so. That's going to be such a fascinating watch. Who Durante Jones chooses to put on the field when the games matter the most. When we start in September, is it going to be Chenal, Luvu, or is it going to be Chenal, Styles, or is all three of them going to be on the field? Who are the edge rushers? Who are the two edge rushers on 3rd and 10 in the opening game against Philadelphia? Is it Owe and Chason, or is it Owe and Armstrong? Who are they? They've got some options. Look, they added a lot of players, and they didn't add a superstar necessarily, although Owe certainly could be coming in to his own. Good one, Nick, with Leo Chenal. 301-230-0980. The player among the new free agent acquisitions that you feel the best about in terms of, there's very little chance he is going to bust. Feel really good about him being a contributor for sure. Dominic, go ahead.
Dominic, my call.
Yep, sure, Dominic. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now? Good.
I got you.
Yeah. No, I'm totally with you. I think the Nick Cross signing is still so underrated. I really think that, you said it yourself. Well, we were and have been for I don't know how many years one of the worst tackling teams, in the league, and just him alone, helps that tremendously. I think the safety position itself is undervalued now. I mean, when you can have a safety that can roam the middle in the box, it can take away the middle of the field. It's just nightmare for quarterbacks where they can't get tight ends. They can't get slot receivers in that area, and they're forced to throw, to the sidelines where they don't have enough room. So I think from a schematic standpoint too, I think having him is just going to be absolutely what we need. I see a little bit of like LaRon Landry in him and how he can hit, but I also could possibly see like a Sean Taylor who can just cover the field too. He's got a little bit of both in them.
Yeah, let me just tell you right now, Nick Cross is a high IQ safety. It's not what I would necessarily say about LaRon Landry. Sean,
no, I'm
yes.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how Landry can hit.
Yeah, but Landry was always looking for the big hit, and so was Sean early in his career. They were always looking for the highlight. Landry missed a lot, though, going for the big hits. Nick Cross doesn't miss. By the way, I looked this up because I wasn't sure if Washington was the worst tackling team or the second worst tackling team last year. Second worst tackling team in terms of missed tackles in the NFL last year after Cincinnati. So Cincinnati had the most missed tackles in the NFL. Washington had the second most missed tackles in the NFL. Yeah, no, you and I are on the same page as it relates to Cross. He is, I mean, comparing him to Sean, we have to be careful of obviously, because that's not the style of player that he is. He doesn't have, I don't know how many safeties have had, other than Ed Reed, in the last 25 years, the range as a free safety that Sean had. But Cross is going to be an excellent tackler. He's a super high IQ player. I just don't see how, A, he's not on the field as much as anybody on defense in terms of snap counts, and then B, how he doesn't perform. I think this is going to be fun to watch Nick Cross in a Brian Flores style defense. Let's go to Dre. Dre, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, how you doing, man? Long
I'm
time.
good, Dre.
Sorry, it's been a minute. Good. So I asked Max if I could do an offense and a defense, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
For offense, I like Chig for the athleticism, because I think he's going to be able to provide spacing for the outside receivers. And also in the run game, it's going to keep that safety from creeping up 2-3 yards off the ball. And he's going to have to stay on that hash a little bit longer just to see what Chig is going to be able to do as far as his route tree.
Okay.
And then for defense, I'm looking forward to Owe because it don't matter who you have on your back end. Pass rush is still paramount. I think there's a lot of upside with him as far as the versatility he can bring. And I was just saying, I know Adam is a little cheap on not cheap, but just tight on the wallet, not overspending. And the fact that he's willing to bust out almost $100 million for this guy just shows that he has that potential to hopefully make a difference for us.
Yeah, I mean, we need the Odafe Owe that ended up, playing for the Chargers at the end of last year, not the one that played for the Ravens for the first 4 or 5 games of last year, because he was an absolute terror with the Chargers. Of his 18, of his 7.5 sacks, all of them came as a Charger after joining them in Week 6, and then he was very effective in the playoff game. I mean, 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles in that playoff game against New England. If the Chargers had been able to generate any level of offense in that game, they would have won that game. And a lot of it would have been because of Odafe Owe, no doubt. One of the things about Nick Cross and Chig Okonkwo is between the two of them in their 4 years in the NFL, 1 game missed. Chig missed 1 game. Nick Cross missed 1 game as a rookie. That's it. They're available. I mean, if you really look at Washington and what they went out and got, they got players who are Meek Robertson's, played in a bunch of games. I think it's Chason, right? Chason was the one that perhaps has missed some games for injury. Am I right about that? Back in Jacksonville a few years ago, he had a serious injury that ended his season. But for the most part, in recent years, the players they signed have been available. And Defensively, they've been, for the most part, excellent tacklers and smart players. I think it's there are a couple of players. Let me mention a couple of others I was considering. I really think Rachaad White's going to be much more significant to this team's offense than a lot of people. I remember when they signed him, many of you reached out to me to say, this guy's not very good. He hasn't this statistically this. I know that the numbers don't necessarily back it up. I always felt like Rachaad White as a runner had excellent vision. And I think in a zone run scheme, this is going to be a good fit for him. And then he is versatile, obviously, as a pass catcher and as an experienced, pass blocker. Look, this guy's been in the league just 4 years. I mean, remember, his rookie season was 2022. He's only 27 years old. Rachaad White, the last 2 seasons in Tampa, has averaged, with better quarterback play, with Baker Mayfield, has averaged 4.3 yards per carry each of those 2 seasons. And then in each of those 2 seasons, 51 catches, 40 catches. I think that Rachaad White, it would surprise me if he's not the guy we're talking about out of the backfield more than any of the others, including Bill. Now, the big difference between White and Krosky-Merritt is that White doesn't have that home run capability. He's had some long runs, but they're usually in the 30s and the 40s. He hasn't taken 180 yards yet. His longest run of his career is 56 yards. It came in 2024. So Krosky-Merritt's got more of that home run ability. I also think he's got the vision to be a really good zone run scheme guy. The patience I think he'll have. White will definitely have the patience. I like White's opportunity in Washington. I think it's a good one. Also, I considered another player too, and that is Tim Settle. There is just an opportunity for Tim Settle to be plugged in and immediately be a snap leader defensively, as if they're in a base 3-4, as a nose tackle, as a zero technique nose tackle playing over the center. And Tim Settle's a good player. And I don't think that there's much of a chance of a bust on Settle. In terms of the bust, man, it's hard to get down on somebody this early. I wonder what Diami's role is going to be, Max. I really do. I wonder what his role will be. Because there's going to be room for Terry, another outside guy. Maybe that's Diami, and Antonio Williams. And the receiver situation will be interesting because they like Burks. I think they like Van Jefferson. He's one that I'll be watching here over the next month to see, and really it won't be as much as what we see, but as much as what we hear and what they say. If you are interested in new windows because your windows are older and you want better insulation and you want your home to look nicer, Window Nation is the place to call. Do me a favor if you've been thinking about new windows, and at least give Window Nation a chance to come out and give you a free in-home estimate. It doesn't cost you anything. They'll do it when it's convenient for you. It can be early in the morning. It can be in the evening. Whenever it's convenient for you, they'll come out. They'll send somebody out in an hour or less. You'll know which windows in your home actually need to be replaced versus those that don't. And then if you choose to move forward with Window Nation, 50% off of everything right now through the end of the month. Everything you purchase, any window style, you're getting a 50% discount. So you're paying half price on the windows. And then if you choose to finance the purchase, no money down, no monthly payments, and no interest for 2 full years. So you get the new windows, you get the benefit of the new windows, which is lower air conditioning bills, lower heating bills, and then you don't have to pay for them until the year 2028. 866-90-NATION is the phone number. You can also go to windownation.com. Mention my name, please. They love listeners of this show calling in for new windows. They'll send their best out to handle it. The installers will come out. They've got so much experience. They'll leave your home in better condition than when they arrived. 866-90-NATION, windownation.com. So LeBron James has not made his decision on the team he will play for in 2026, 2027. He's going to play. We know that he's not going to play for the Lakers. And, the front runners appear to be the Philadelphia 76ers, the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Golden State Warriors, and the Miami Heat. Miami Heat posted a link on their YouTube channel to what would be a live streaming of LeBron James's introductory press conference on July 27th. That was out there last night on their YouTube channel. A link. Click here for the live streaming of LeBron James's introductory press conference on July 27th. So immediately, anybody that picked up on that, it went viral, and it's like, okay, well, it's LeBron to Miami. But ESPN's Shams Charania reported yesterday late that the club's social media department was preparing for the possibility of a James signing, but mistakenly posted the link to the team's YouTube page, and that there's actually nothing definitive. They were just, in the event that LeBron does sign with our team, we're going to be ready to go from a social media standpoint, but it wasn't supposed to get posted to the YouTube page. You buying it, Max?
Man, that's the thing is, what was it? Maybe 2 weeks ago, I texted you and was like, it sounds like LeBron might be going to the Warriors. So at this point, Rich Paul is running circles around me. I have no idea what's real and what isn't anymore.
Adam, they've held up the schedule release because of LeBron.
He's holding the league hostage, Kev.
He's holding the league hostage right now because the schedule would be out by now, and they can't complete the schedule for the upcoming season until they know where LeBron's going to play, because wherever LeBron plays, it's going to be an increased number of nationally televised games. I actually really do think the Heat make a lot of sense. I think it's, him and Giannis together.
Him, Giannis, and Bam?
And Bam together makes sense. He doesn't have to. He's not going to be the number one go-to anywhere. He can still be a number two go-to. That for whatever reason, I've had this feeling all along that it's Miami. Like I don't know. The Philadelphia thing still relies on Embiid to be healthy. Look, I guess Miami relies on Giannis to be healthy, right? That's true. And Giannis has had an issue staying healthy. But Embiid is just always, he stays injured. Just completely stays injured. And you're not winning a title with Tyrese Maxey and with LeBron James. You have to have Embiid in the postseason playing at a high level to win a title. And LeBron wants to go win a title right now. Giannis and Bam and LeBron makes sense to me, not to mention the fact, LeBron at his age, I'm sure would much prefer, to be somewhere where it's nice and the tax situation is great. I mean, Golden State would be entertaining for sure to see him and Steph, and Draymond would be probably back on a lower deal. But I think it's going to be Miami. I think it was probably a genuine mistake, but at the same time, there's probably a feeling that they've got a really good shot. And so they were just preparing, as good social media teams do. But they did say immediately that was a mistake. There's no press conference scheduled for LeBron on July 27th. Come on, LeBron, get it done, because here's the thing. I can't wait for the first time in years. I can't wait to see the Wizards' schedule. And will they get nationally televised games? You're damn right they will. 100% they're going to get some games, some high-profile games with the number one pick in the league. Will they be a Christmas Day game? Probably not. Plus, the NBA now doesn't matter on Christmas Day, since the NFL has multiple games. I forget, does the NFL have a triple header this Christmas, or is it a double header this Christmas?
I think it's a
Last year
double header, but let me triple check.
I think it's a double header too. No, it's a triple header.
Oh my God.
Packers, Bears, Bills, Broncos, Rams. God, that
Rams,
right
Seahawks.
now, that looks like just one unbelievable football day. Packers, Bears at 1, Bills, Broncos at 4:30, Rams, Seahawks at 8:15 on Christmas Day. Christmas is a Friday. We get and there's a Christmas Eve game at night. Houston at Philly. We play on either the 26th or the 27th. We're one of the flex possibilities in Minnesota that weekend. All right. Steve Sands will join us next. He did a phenomenal job all week and all weekend long. Steve Sands did on NBC's coverage, USA's coverage of last weekend's very exciting British Open, or as golf people call it, the Open Championship at Royal Birkdale. Steve joins us right now. Steve will probably want to weigh in on AJ DeBonce's Summer League and training camp right around the corner. But I do want to talk some golf with you because there was a lot to this last weekend. And it started on Friday for sure with the whole Bryson thing, which we'll get to. But I always ask you when there is a new winner about how popular, the Ray win earlier this year at a major was, you said, one of the most popular winners we've seen in a long time. Can the same be said about Ryan Fox?
Yeah, I think it's a popular win amongst his peers. The fans, Kevin, pretty much have no idea who he is or what he's about. But
right.
The professionals on tour who travel around the world playing golf at the highest level have a full understanding that he's a terrific guy. He works his butt off. He's a pro's pro. He plays quickly. He plays the right way. His pedigree is great. His mom was a rock star cricketer back in New Zealand. His father was an absolute stud for the most famous rugby team in the world, the New Zealand All Blacks. And that clutch gene fell down to their son because that kid can play. And, it was a bit of a coming out party. We'll see what happens. Just like Aaron Rai, we'll see what happens from here forward. But amongst his peers, Kevin, it's a very popular win. He's a very popular player amongst his peers. Really good guy.
So I think for a lot of golfers, he's a great lesson in how to play when it comes to pace of play. I think there was a lot of talk about that because to me, that is a big part for the recreational golfer. You don't have to be good, but you got to play quickly. You got to keep the pace. I mean, he's got to be among the fastest players we've ever seen.
It's incredible to watch him play golf because the stakes that he is playing for are a lot different than the stakes that you and I are playing for when we're out there hacking it around, and he's out there hustling, man. It is so much fun to watch. It's so refreshing. And, maybe the kids who are coming up or other amateurs that we play with will stop doing the aim point garbage. We'll stop doing, the taking forever garbage and realize that, the best players in the world can also play at a quick pace. And, these guys are not only the best players in the world, Kevin, but, kids who are growing up playing the sport or amateurs who play the sport at our age, they emulate the best players in the world because they're the ones they watch the most on television. And when you see someone play that quickly, and by the way, he's not in a hurry. That's just his pace.
Yeah.
He plays at a quick pace, and it is so refreshing. It's the way the sport should be played. And I hope that other people will, everything in sports is you call it a copycat league. Everybody, copies other people who have success, and hopefully people do that with him.
All right, let's talk about some of the players that certainly had a chance. So what do we start thinking about Sam Burns and the opportunities he's had and then the inability to close? Look, the Oakmont thing from a few years ago, the standing water, I thought that was ridiculous, and it probably cost him a U.S. Open. But a talented player, badass competitor, right, Sam Burns? What do you guys in the sport make of him at this point? Because I certainly liked him going into Sunday.
Oh, yeah, his time's coming, Kevin. I mean, normally in sports, whether it's an individual sport or a team sport, doesn't really matter. Normally in sports, you need to get punched in the face a few times before you have success. And he certainly has. The ruling he did not get at Oakmont last year was ridiculous. Totally agree with you. Probably cost him, but you don't know how he would have come down the stretch. But it looked like it cost him a great chance to win the U.S. Open. Almost hard to believe he didn't get into a playoff or win the U.S. Open at Shinnecock 5 weeks ago.
Right.
Wyndham Clark just beat him. You can live with that as an athlete. Losing is one thing. Getting beaten is another. He got beat, and Wyndham got him in the end. And then what happened to him last weekend, partly his fault, but also Sam, got beat again. Ryan Fox went out and grabbed it. It's almost hard to believe that he didn't win one of those three majors in the last 12 and a half months. But his time is coming for sure. He is a baller. He will not give up, and he will continue to press forward. I think he's going to win a major championship pretty soon.
Cam Young posted the number early with a 64 in the final day, and then there's Burns right behind him, and then tied for fourth, Tommy Fleetwood was in that group. Are those the three right now? Who am I missing that are the best active players not to win a major yet?
It's funny. We did a graphic last week that I couldn't believe. There are 4 players in the top 10 in the official World Golf ranking who have yet to win a major championship. I think Cameron Young is the best player among that group who you just said. Tommy Fleetwood has certainly been around longer than Cameron Young. But, Tommy in his hometown in Southport, England, in Birkdale, I mean, everybody was rooting for him. He is literally as popular a player amongst his peers and the fans as you can be. He's a wonderful, wonderful guy. The pressure just seemed to be a little bit too much for him. But I think Tommy will continue to compete at a high level and perhaps win a major championship. Kind of like Darren Clark winning it beyond 40 years of age, Mark O'Meara winning a major beyond 40 years of age. I think Tommy Fleetwood will compete. But I think the Cameron Young piece, he played well enough to win. He finished more than 2 hours before Ryan Fox made that putt to win. And I think that he's probably, here we are on Wednesday, just after 11 a.m. Eastern time, Kevin. I think he's probably still stewing over that bogey he made at the 18th hole, which ended up, at the end, ended up costing him a chance to win. But who knew that at the time? He played very, very well. But I think his time is coming as well. His ascension has been the way it's supposed to be in sports. He 7 times a runner-up. When's he going to win? Finally gets a win. Okay, what's he going to do now? Plays great in the Ryder Cup of the United States, even though the U.S. team lost. He played well individually, and then he goes and wins his crowning achievement in the sport so far, the Players this year, which is, not the 5th major, but it's the 5th biggest event in the sport. And I think that he is ascending in the right direction to finally get a major championship win here in the next couple of years.
Steve Sands, NBC Sports and the Golf Channel, joining us right now. So, look, he won twice in 2025, but Scotty Scheffler shut out in 2026. And you're inside the sport. I'm watching on Sunday, and I'm like, can we make a putt at some point during the weekend? Because he's certainly striking the ball at the highest Scotty Scheffler levels. But what do you guys make of Scheffler's 2026?
As hard as it is to believe, Kevin, that Sam Burns did not win one of those 3 majors we talked about, the last 2 U.S. Opens and this past week's Open Championship, it's even harder to believe that Scheffler didn't win at Shinnecock or at Birkdale or maybe even both. And it was not his ball striking. It was not his chipping and pitching. It was not his mental state at all, which is incredibly strong. It was his putter. And he probably missed 20 putts that he truly should have made. And both of those events would have been runaway wins for Scotty. I just think sometimes in this sport, the putter can go cold. It's not a problem. It's not a long-term issue. But certainly right now, Scotty needs to tighten up that putter. You won't have another chance at a major and, for 9 months. Augusta's not until April, so it's a long ways away. But Scotty's certainly playing well enough to win a major this season. He just didn't because his putter never cooperated.
All right, let's get to Bryson and what happened on Friday. And I'll just I'll give you the floor because not everybody that's listening knows the details of what happened on Friday. But I want you to describe what happened, and then I want the fallout from your side of this conversation inside the ropes and what everybody's been saying.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. We stayed on for an extra hour, 20 minutes while that whole WWE type thing was going on with him arguing back and forth with the officials. Par 4, 5th hole, short, drivable par 4, hit it way right over the penalty area and into a bunch of hay, bunch of deep grass. He walked in to hit his second shot and was stomping around like an elephant. And that's not what professionals do. That's something that you and I would do. That's something that amateurs would do because we don't know any better. So at minimum, he was careless. At maximum,
tell everybody what
the
stomping around does.
So what he was doing was stomping around in the grass, and what he was essentially doing was improving his lie, because in his backswing, if you don't have that hay and those the wispy grass in your backswing, you have a clear path to the golf ball to be able to strike it cleanly. Professionals never step into a shot like that. When they hit it into the hay and into the trouble, into the grass like that, they are extremely careful. You heard that word used a lot by his fellow tour pros. A lot of guys were saying he just seemed a little careless there. Again, I don't know whether he did it on purpose. I don't know whether he did not do it on purpose. It's not for me to judge. What is to be judged is how he stepped in there. And when he stepped in there originally, before hitting his second shot, he was basically, Kevin, clearing out all of that deep grass that would have impeded his backswing. And the officials didn't like the way it looked. 90% of the players didn't like the way it looked. Again, doesn't mean he was doing it intentionally. Doesn't mean he's a cheater. It just meant he was being careless. And that's something you almost never see with golf at the highest level. So they waited, the officials, because it was Friday. Thursday, Friday, Saturday are a lot different than Sunday. And here's why. If this was on Sunday, they would have notified him right away. And the reason is because strategically throughout the rest of the round, he perhaps would have played differently. You know, if you have a one-shot lead and you have a two-shot penalty coming, that means you're one back. So you're going to play the 17th and 18th holes perhaps differently than you would if you think you have a one-shot lead. But because it was Friday, they waited until the end of the round, the officials, correctly, and they told him before he signed his scorecard correctly, and then they went and, you know, had this kind of clown show for about an hour, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Where he actually.
Why did they do that? Why did they go back out there with him? They was like they were giving him what he wanted at that point.
Yeah, they were going to penalize him the entire time because they didn't like the way it looked. And they correctly didn't like the way it looked. It was the correct ruling. There's no doubt about the fact that he should have received the two shots. The arguing back and forth, the theatrics, you know, the swing coach was out there, the agent was out there. We were on forever just waiting to see what was going to happen. They were going to give him the two because he deserved to get the two shots. The question was, would he talk them out of it? And that was never going to happen. So I don't know why. They took him out of it because that's allowed in the rules of golf by the governing body, in this case, the R&A, which governs the Open Championship. And they wanted him to allow him to be able to state his case. And he tried and tried and tried, and it just wasn't, they weren't going to budge, and they shouldn't have budged. He definitely broke a rule. And it wasn't because he's Bryson DeChambeau. It wasn't because he's a Trump guy. It wasn't because he's a live player. It's because the R&A thinks he broke a rule. And that's why he got the two-shot penalty. But they have to allow the player to at least go out there and explain himself. Does it need to take an hour and 20 minutes? Of course not. But that's Bryson. That's part of the show. That's part of what you get, you know, from somebody like Bryson. Good or bad, doesn't matter whether you like him or not. He's entertainment, and he certainly was entertaining in that regard.
You said 90% of the players didn't like what they saw, but, you know, there is intentionally done cheating, or it was just careless. What do you think most of the players thought it was? Was it intentionally done, or was it careless?
I think that publicly they'll all say that it was careless. I think more than 50% of them will tell you that it was done on purpose, privately, because of what I said earlier. Again, if me and you go out to Columbia, Kevin, with a couple of buddies and a golf carts and a few beers, you know, we're just walking around. We don't know what the heck we're doing. I mean, we do, but we don't. Professional golfers are different. They understand that not only are you on TV all the time because you're Bryson DeChambeau and you're one of the most famous players in the world, you're a two-time U.S. Open winner, and you're great television and entertainment, but they know when they walk into a spot like that, that they have to be careful because the golf ball could either move, the trees, the bushes, the hay, whatever the scenario is, in this case, the bushes and the hay. If you stomp on those and you bring them backwards, you're allowing your backswing to be much less impeded than it would be if you let the grass lie as it is. And, you know, there's the theatrics involved with Bryson that allows not only fans of golf, but other tour players to have a stronger opinion about Bryson than most. But there's no question that he deserved the 2 shots. There's no debate that he broke a rule. The debate is whether or not he did it intentionally. And most players are very, very reticent. Fans, Twitter, whatever. But most professional golfers are extremely reticent to call out another player for doing something intentionally because you just don't know if that player is doing that. Now, having said that, because of his personality and because of the way he goes about his business, a guy like Rory McIlroy will tell you, I don't like him. It was careless.
Yeah.
Move along. It's 2 shots. Whereas a guy like Scotty Scheffler will say, I play a lot of golf with Bryson back home in Dallas. I basically grew up at the same time with Bryson. I've known him a long time. I don't think he did it intentionally, but I do think he was careless. So careless is the big word. The intent of it all, guys are on the record. They normally will never call out another player unless it's absolutely 100% blatant. This seemed to be blatant, but it wasn't 100% blatant.
And then the follow-up to it, Steve. This is where, I mean, this guy, I don't think he cares, but he's not doing himself any favors with the petulant, aftermath of, basically hitting balls, when until it turned dark, keeping, everybody there waiting for him on the range and threatening not to play the following day. When I saw that, I'm like, don't play. Let's go do your YouTube thing that you've been talking about doing. What about the reaction to what I thought was petulant and childlike in terms of the follow-up?
Well, what's wild is, and you know this because you're in the business, we're on live, okay? And as it's playing out live, the one thing you never want to do as a sportscaster is speculate. You can't speculate on injuries. You can't speculate on whether he did it on purpose. The players can. The analysts can. But as the host, as the play-by-play guy, that's not for me to say. If you and I are just talking back and forth, that's one thing. But on the air, that's not for me to say. I was trying to get Jim Furyk and Kurt Byram to, not give a stronger opinion because they both gave strong opinions, but I was trying to figure out whether or not they were okay with him saying, blatantly, visibly, audibly saying, I'm going to not play tomorrow. I mean, what is that? That's not how it works. Kurt Byram's an accomplished player. Jim Furyk's an incredibly accomplished player. These guys are athletes at the highest level. What, are you going to take your ball and go home because you didn't like the ruling? I mean, if that was the case, the 49ers would have never played football again after that, tough call that they had in the playoff game at RFK all those years ago. That's just not how sport.
Well, you can use more recent examples like the Saints and the Rams, but
but
go ahead.
The Saints and Rams, same thing. Just any example you want. Shane Lowry last year got a 3-shot penalty, which was really controversial. And you just move along, you take it, and you swallow it, and you move along because that's what you do as a professional athlete. So, we were all a little taken aback while we were on the air live when he said that to the official because, give me a break, Bryce. What, are you going to quit? Go ahead and quit. Get out of here. The championship's going to go on without you, and you still had a chance to win. If you're going to threaten to not play over the weekend because you think you're bigger than the sport or bigger than the event, you're wrong. And go ahead and do what you want to do. But I thought that part, to me as a sports fan, that part was nauseating to me. I mean, take your ball 100%. And go home if that's what you want.
I was rooting for him to actually follow through, but I knew he would.
I agree.
Because he's performative with everything.
He would. Of course he. And then he went and hit balls. So again, with Bryson, like it or dislike it, and he's certainly entertaining, certainly draws ratings. I mean, we had massive ratings for the Open Championship because of that situation, and it carried into the weekend. And that's because of him. Because what you get with him is part showman, part WWE, part professional golfer, part clown show. It's all wrapped into one, and that's entertainment. And entertainment sells, and he certainly understands that he's as entertaining as anybody in the sport.
All right. I looked this up. So it's been basically 2 years since Tiger played golf. It was the Open at Royal Troon was his last, I think, competitive round. I could be wrong about that. You would know. Next year's Open Championship is at St. Andrews.
Yep.
By the way, they're playing the Open next year at Pebble. It's a pretty good lineup. I'm going to ask you about the PGA Championship site because I don't know much about it. But are we going to see Tiger again? Could there be a wave on 18 at St. Andrews? Like, what are we expecting, if anything, from Tiger Woods in the future?
I don't know what we're expecting because he needs to make sure he has his health in order as far as all the things that he is dealing with. And, his body has clearly failed him. He has certainly, gone over the edge a little bit when it comes to some of the things he's trying to do to alleviate the pain that he is in because of all the injuries and because of all the surgeries. So first and foremost, I just hope he's healthy and okay. If he's healthy enough to play, for sure, he will play in the Masters, and for sure he will play at the old course at St. Andrews. And, if he can go play the U.S. Open at Pebble Beach, I'm sure he would love to do that too. I'm not sure he's, in a hurry to get to Frisco to play that golf course. But the other three major championship venues, he certainly wants to play. Here's what I'm hoping for, Kevin, and I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm hoping, again, as a sports fan, Tiger's not going to beat these guys ever again. He's not going to win again. He's not going to be able to put together 4 days of great golf and beat these young guys. It's just not going to happen. I would love for him to say at the beginning of the year, or maybe at the end of this year at his own Hero World Challenge in the Bahamas, next year's it for me. I've had an amazing run. I want to thank everybody, and I'm going to go to 3 of my favorite venues in the whole world, Augusta National, Pebble Beach, and St. Andrews, and I'm going to say goodbye, and that's it. I don't think that's going to happen because it's not his nature. It's one of the reasons he's been so great. But I would love for him to say, I'm tapping out. It's been an amazing run. All things come to an end at some point. And these 3 venues mean so much to me in my career, in my life, that this is the year that I'm going to go say goodbye. I hope that happens, but I just don't know if it will.
Tell me real quickly about the PGA site. You already mentioned it, Fields Ranch in Frisco, Texas. Obviously a first time there for any major. Just give me 30 seconds on the venue. I don't know anything about it.
The PGA of America moved a few years ago its headquarters from South Florida to Frisco, Texas, opened up this facility. They own it. It's going to be a Ryder Cup venue, and it's going to be a major championship venue, the PGA Championship venue, for the foreseeable future. It's brand new. They've played a senior PGA there, and they played a women's PGA championship there. The reviews are not great. Is it worthy of hosting a major championship? We'll have to wait and see. It doesn't seem like it. But it's a financial decision. The PGA of America is in business, and that's a business decision that they made. But is it worthy in 2027 with those other 3 major championship venues? It sure seems to me the PGA of America should have picked a different venue next year and maybe opened up the Frisco one for the major championship, the PGA championship that they own in 2028, because it's just such an eyesore when you consider Augusta National, Pebble, and St. Andrews. But it's a brand new golf course. Gil Hands designed it. It'd be great for me and you to go play, but major championships in golf, Kevin, are about history, and history's on the line. And you're playing it at a brand new venue, it just seems a little odd.
Is this the venue that Nelly Corda won earlier this year when she won a major? Is that the venue?
It wasn't earlier this year. No, the women's PGA was played, a couple of years ago, and also the senior PGA was played there as well. But no, she didn't win. She won at Riviera, the U.S. Women's Open.
Well, that's right. I know she won at Riviera, but I thought there was some place in Texas that she won a major.
She's probably won in Texas, but not the Frisco one.
All right. So what did you think of the soccer?
I loved it. I loved the event, the pageantry, the emotion, the spectacle of it all is amazing. I'm a little soccered out. I'm done with it. I'm ready to move on to our football and not that football. But what an event. I mean, what just a rousing success, for the United States. To have all these people coming in and having such a great time, whether they loved Buc-ee's or In-N-Out Burger or just going into Manhattan and having a good time in Times Square. But the singing and the chanting is so overwhelmingly great. I don't know the first thing about soccer, and I was riveted watching almost all of it Now, I won't watch soccer again until maybe LA in 28 when I'm there for the Olympics for NBC, or in 2030 if it's something, a big deal. But it seemed like a bigger deal because it was here for all of us sports fans, and it was great to watch. And the right team won for sure. I know you were there. I heard your review. That's awesome. You were there. It's very, very cool. But I'm done with soccer now for the next 2 to 4 years.
The TV numbers came out last night.
Oh my gosh, 63 million. Yeah, I saw that.
63 million people watched on Fox and Telemundo.
Only
that
the
is
Super Bowl
that's
is larger.
second.
That's
Second.
larger.
I'm sorry.
That's larger than an AFC or NFC championship game. The only thing that's larger is the Super Bowl. It's amazing.
The only thing that's larger is the Super Bowl. I mean,
it's amazing.
So you described how you will handle it, and I'm in the same boat with you. I can't envision, watching much, if any, soccer between now and 2030. I forgot about 2028, but I don't know that Olympic soccer is going to do it for me. Do you think that you and I are basically the same age, and we've lived through all of these moments where, the soccer people have told us this is going to be the event. This is the one that will spark America's falling in love with the sport. What do you? How does it manifest itself off of this? How will it play out?
They've been saying this since the early 90s when we last hosted in the United States. They've been saying this when Pele came over and Johan Cruyff came over and they were playing, with the Dips and with the Cosmos and all that stuff. It's been going on forever. It's never going to catch on in the United States. It's just not. Now, is MSI great for kids? Yes, absolutely. Is select soccer in the area
Tell
at a
everybody,
high level?
That's Montgomery County soccer, yes,
exactly.
For kids.
All that stuff is great. But training camps are opening up, Kevin. Your focus will switch quickly to our football as opposed to the football. And that'll be the end of that. I mean, are we going to turn, because we just saw great soccer at the World Cup and all the singing and chanting and all the spectacle and all the pageantry of it all, are we going to suddenly turn on? And I do these promos every single week on NBC and Golf Channel and USA. Are we going to turn on Tottenham playing Man City? No, that's just not who we are as a culture. Doesn't make the sport bad. Doesn't make the sport less than. It just means in this particular country, we are football, and then at the professional level, and then college football, and then the NBA and Major League Baseball and the NHL and the Triple Crown races and the Grand Slam tennis events and the Grand Slam golf events, the PGA Tour on a regular basis. Soccer just doesn't add up. And by the way, the atmosphere at MLS games on TV or in person is nothing like what we just saw over the last month.
No.
So they're incomparable. Even though they're the same sport, they're a different game. And I just don't think it's ever going to catch on here in the United States. Not at that level.
All right. I'm with you. So any thoughts here on, we're 1 week away from the first training camp practice with everybody in camp. What's your big, you get asked all the time, but on tour, because everybody knows that you're a DC guy and everybody knows that you are a Skins fan. And so what do you tell, Scotty Scheffler comes up to you and says, so what's Washington going to be like this year? What do you say?
I was having a couple of beers last night with our dear friend Chief, and we were talking about this exact topic. And I said,
we need Scott to do Chief's voice, but we'll pass on that for now.
Chief's a legend. I don't cheat this, and I'll tell every single PGA Tour player when we talk about this stuff, which we talk about sports all the time, especially football. I just want us to stay healthy and see what happens, because I think this is a massive year for Jaden Daniels. And here's why. Because when you start playing, if you play the way he plays, and I love the way he plays, if you play the way he plays and you get injured in this town, you're going to get compared to Robert Griffin. And this is a big, big year for Jaden Daniels. He has to stay healthy. You are only as good as your availability. He's a great, great player. He's a great leader. I think the team is better. I think the defense especially is going to be better. And I think if Jaden is healthy with a new offensive coordinator playing under center. I think if they stay healthy and they can get through these first 3 games, at least 1-2, I think that the Skins are going to be good. But they've got to stay healthy. That's the key. That's the key to it all. If 5 stays healthy, they have a chance. If 5 gets injured and they start with the Robert Griffin stuff and can't stay on the field, it's going to be a big, big problem.
Thank you for doing this. I will talk to you soon. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, Kevin. And I apologize for yesterday. We got stuck in the air with all the lightning and thunderstorms. I apologize.
Oh, stop. Yeah. We had storms all day. I'll talk to you later. I appreciate it as always.
All right, buddy. Be good.
Steve Sands, everybody, the best, and does such a phenomenal job as a play-by-play golf guy. Oh, you know what I forgot to ask him about? I love that American Century Lake Tahoe celebrity event every year. That was last weekend, and I know that's one of his favorite events, seeing all of these celebrities try to play golf. Marty Fish won it. He is a really good golfer. Was an excellent tennis player. Maybe even a better golfer than he was a tennis player. All right. There's a story out there that our good friend Mike Jones wrote on The Athletic about some overrated teams entering 2026 and some underrated teams entering 2026. The interesting part of both of those lists when we come back. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com. Mike Jones, who writes for The Athletic, covers the league, wrote this morning about the NFL's underrated and overrated teams heading into 2026. Now, I'm not about to tell you, because they're not on the list, that the reason this was interesting to me was because Washington was one of the underrated teams listed. He did not actually mention Washington as an underrated team. He mentioned Atlanta, Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Carolina, and New Orleans as the underrated teams entering 2026. By the way, I agree with him on New Orleans. I think the Saints have a pretty good roster. And if Shuck is right, if Tyler Shuck is right, and he looked good at the end of last year, I think they could be a threat to win the NFC South. To me, what caught my attention was his overrated team list. So he mentioned Buffalo, he mentioned Chicago, and he mentioned New England. But then he mentioned two NFC East teams, Dallas and Philadelphia. And I wonder whether or not there is a chance here he's going to be dead on correct. It feels to me like this could be a step back year for the Eagles. They won the division 2 straight years. They won the Super Bowl 2 years ago. There just seems to be a lot of, other stuff going on in Philadelphia. The trading of A.J. Brown, the bringing in of another offensive coordinator. Although I'd be encouraged if I were a Philadelphia fan with Sean Mannion as the offensive coordinator, but he's never done it before. Same situation with us. There are more new coordinators offensively and defensively than we've ever seen in the NFL. We went through that data a few weeks ago, and Philadelphia is one of those teams that has a new coordinator offensively. Dallas has a new coordinator defensively. But the Eagles, and whether or not that will mesh quickly, and Nick Sirianni appears to be on a warm seat at the very least. They lost arguably their most talented offensive player, even though he was disgruntled for sure. They've added some pieces, but it could be a step back year for them. It could be a step back year for the Cowboys. Imagine if Mike Jones is correct and Dallas and Philadelphia both are a bit overrated going into the season. He writes about Dallas. Jerry Jones will tell you the Cowboys always have a shot at contention, and his team does generate plenty of buzz, but the Cowboys will have to gel in a hurry on defense, where new defensive coordinator, I'll add first-time defensive coordinator, Christian Parker, inherits a unit that struggled mightily last season, but added plenty of new faces, including veterans like pass rusher Rashawn Gary, Kobe Durant, linebacker D. Winters, and rookie linebackers Malachi Lawrence and Jayshawn Barham. The offense, led by Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and George Pickens, should again put up points, but the much-needed defensive backing could take some time. Then he writes about Philadelphia being overrated. The Eagles have ranked among the elite teams of the NFC for the last 10 years, making the playoffs 9 times and winning the Super Bowl twice. I'll add in there, losing a Super Bowl. Even with last season's regression, they won the NFC East for the 3rd time in 4 seasons. But now they're trying to retool on the fly, subtracting the disgruntled A.J. Brown and drafting Mekhi Lemon, rolling with their 4th offensive coordinator in his many years, rookie play caller Sean Mannion, and adding veterans Jonathan Grenard and Reek Woolen on defense while losing standouts Nakobe Dean and Reed Blankenship. I'd forgotten that they lost Blankenship. I knew they lost Dean. Forgot that they lost Blankenship, who was a bit of a problem for our team the last few years. And then he finishes up by writing, the health of the offensive line is a concern, as is a tough late season stretch. Although viewed as a bar setter, the Eagles could hit a few snags this season. I mean, 2 teams, 1 division being, described by Mike Jones of The Athletic as overrated. Well, if he's right, that clearly opens up an opportunity for the 2 other teams in the division. He doesn't list the Giants or Washington as underrated, and obviously 2 teams with win totals of 7.5 can't be overrated. heading into an NFL season. Nobody's going to. Last year, you could list Washington as an overrated team, and you would have been correct. Maybe not for the reasons that you thought you would be correct, but you were correct nonetheless. Right now, the NFL division odds, sort of a consensus of the division odds, have Philly as a favorite at around plus 125, the Cowboys at plus 216, and then there's a drop-off to Washington at plus 460, and the Giants at plus 580. I still think that Washington has the highest ceiling quarterback in the division. And if he remains healthy and plays 17 games and the offensive coordinator is good enough, that they have an absolute shot to win the division. And I would say of the two teams that I find as a possibility of being overrated, I think the Philadelphia one feels the most real. And it's not because they don't have a great roster, because they do have an excellent roster. They still have one of the best rosters in the NFL. And they have the best roster in the NFC East. I don't think there's any doubt about that. The Eagles have the best roster in the NFC East. The issue is just it's feeling old and stale there. It's feeling like they want Sirianni gone. They want Sirianni to fail to a certain degree. Jalen Hurts, giving him enough. This guy in 9 years, 10 years has had 9 different coordinators going back to college. Saquon Barkley, let's keep in mind, when Saquon Barkley got, signed with Philadelphia, the issue was, will it be different? Will he be healthy? Because in New York, he wasn't always healthy. Played 16 games in 2024. They sat him for the 17th. Same thing in 2025. He's been healthy 2 consecutive years. Can he make a healthy 3-peat in Philadelphia as he's approaching 30 years old at running back? The offensive line was banged up all last year. That was a big problem for that team. And do they have a true number 1 wide receiver for Sean Mannion and Jalen Hurts? I don't know. I mean, I think Devontae Smith is a number 1, yes, but he's not a high level. He is a top half of the league, maybe number 1, but probably, in that 15 to 22 range, 16 to 22 range. I'd take Terry McLaurin even at this age over Devontae Smith. I like Devontae Smith, but he's not going to carry them. They had somebody in A.J. Brown, despite his attitude at the end of last year, and how, unhappy he was, that certainly when he played was a true high-level, borderline elite-level number 1 wide receiver. They don't have that on their roster right now. Mekhi Lemon's more of an inside guy. Hollywood Brown's not that guy. Elijah Moore's not that guy. They got backs in Barkley, in Shipley, in Bigsby, but what will it look like offensively? Defensively, I still look at that team and I'm like, man, they've got arguably the number 1 defensive coordinator in the league in Vic Fangio. And then you've got, up front, Carter, Davis. You got Bond behind him. You got the rookie from last year, Campbell, who, now you added Jonathan Grenard to that mix. Nolan Smith is a part of that. Then in the secondary, DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell. They added Reek Woolen to the team. Defensively, the Eagles still have a chance to be dominant defensively. So I don't see them cratering, although injuries could certainly put them in a cratering position. But I think offensively, man, God, what a big year for Jalen Hurts. What a big year for Nick Sirianni, whether or not he picked the right coordinator there in Sean Mannion. We'll see. Dallas, I don't trust the Cowboys. I don't trust even the quarterback when it matters, and I certainly don't trust them defensively. Dallas, Cincinnati, and Washington are very similar in that they've got quarterbacks that can lead you to double-digit wins, but they've had recently horrendous defensive football teams. And that puts them at risk of being a good team and even a playoff team, but a team that can't make a deep run. Dallas, remember, added Quinnen Williams, Kenny Clark last year, via the Parsons trade. Quinnen Williams at the deadline. That guy, DeMarvion Overshone, was hurt, came back. He's certainly talented. Ezeraku, who they picked, remember, from Boston College in the 25 draft, really hasn't necessarily made his bones yet. Caleb Downs was their first-round pick. We'll see what he looks like in a Dallas uniform. But they've got to be much better defensively, just like Washington's got to be much better defensively. I don't know. The NFC East seems like one of those years where it could get flipped on its side based on preseason expectations. Philly the favorite, Dallas the second favorite. It wouldn't surprise me if one of the other two teams won the division. And if you said, which one, I'd say Washington, because I'll take Jaden over Jackson Dart, all day long. The Giants roster, though, is solid. I mean, really solid. Even without Dexter Lawrence, they've got a solid overall roster. They do. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com. So Will wrote me and wanted to know, was really excited about the possibility of hearing my review of being at the World Cup game, the soccer championship on Sunday. Some of you wrote me to say that sounds condescending when I referred to it as the soccer championship. I guess you're right. Sorry about that. It was the World Cup final, not the soccer championship. But Will wrote me, and he wrote, I hope you enjoyed the World Cup as much as I did. I know soccer isn't your thing, but I'm interested to know what you thought of the game. Even though it was 1-0, I thought it was an incredibly exciting game. Spain completely dominated possession, shots, and the overall pace, while Argentina looked desperate from the start. The referee called it pretty fairly, though I'm still bitter about that Spanish goal being taken away by a very questionable foul call. I'm really anxious to get your thoughts and feedback on it, especially what you made of the unbelievable atmosphere and the raw passion from both the Spanish and Argentinian fans. Cheers, Will. Will, thank you for that. And Will's been writing me throughout the World Cup. I did not share your analysis of the game. It was boring to me, but I understood Spain's defensive brilliance. But the overall atmosphere was the best. It was, the whole thing was big. I mean, it was big. And then the, raw passion from the Argentina fan base is the most memorable thing from being there. I just had never witnessed anything like that. I've never been to a high-level soccer game, and the singing and not just the singing, 90 minutes before the game started, 90 minutes after the game started. It was really, I think it's what I love about soccer from afar before I had been there in person, is just how important it is to the rest of the world. And the spectacle that it is. It's a spectacle, these big events. I mean, the Super Bowl is a spectacle. All of our big events are spectacles, but it was just different. But I also had a friend of mine text me and said, you had a throwaway line referring to Spain as the 85 Bears. It's a bad analogy. Look, I wasn't making the analogy. I was saying that what I've been told is that Spain's defensive tournament was just dominant. And, it was a defensive World Cup winner, a team that was just dominant defensively. But he said to me that the Spain win was much more analogous football-wise to the 2000 Ravens than to the 85 Bears, who played obviously a 46 defense, and they were coming from everywhere, and the blitzing and the pressure, and it was all about getting to the quarterback. And, Baltimore's 2000 defense was dominant in every aspect. So was the Bears defense of 85. I think I understand the difference. The other part of the Ravens 2000 win is they were so pedestrian on offense. They were also great on special teams that year. Chicago had Walter Payton and Jim McMahon and Willie Gault. They had some offensive, firepower. It was not what led them, but they were capable offensively. But yeah, soccer people, in trying to help some of us understand what Spain was, they're trying to tell us that Spain's run through this World Cup was the equivalent of some of the greatest defensive Super Bowl champions that we've ever seen. I thought the final on Sunday was similar to the Eagles-Chiefs game 2 years ago, because I would still put the Eagles' defensive performance in a Super Bowl, in an actual Super Bowl game. I'm not talking about the entire 2024 Philadelphia Eagles season. I mean, by the end of the year, they were dominant defensively, except against everybody but Washington. But in that Super Bowl, Kansas City didn't cross midfield until late in the third quarter. And that's what I think Sunday's final looked like to me. Like, Argentina did not have a chance to score until very late in the game. Spain completely held them essentially from, they averaged 1.3 yards per rush. They were 3 and out over and over again, and they didn't cross midfield until late in the game. That's what the final looked like to me. It was more equivalent to what the Eagles did to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Of course, the Eagles were scoring, as all of that great defense was going on, and Spain didn't. They had plenty of opportunities, and the goalie was great. But, yeah, thank you, Will, and thank you to everybody who weighed in on what they thought about the World Cup final, because I did read through a lot of your emails and some tweets and have gotten back to some of you, because it was an interesting 5-6 weeks. It really was. There's no World Cup that's been played previous to this one that had this kind of attention. 63 million people in this country watched the final between Spain and Argentina. 63 million when you combine the Fox audience with the Telemundo audience. That's insane. That eclipses championship games in the NFL. Not the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl's twice that number, basically. But I still don't see it, translating to, a fervor over the sport from American sports fans until the next time in 2030. John Orand joined me the other day to talk a lot about soccer, but then we got into some of the other big topics in sports media and sports business. You'll hear that next. He was on my podcast. I wanted to play some of it for you. John's always great. I think he's the number one sports media and sports business reporter out there by far. That's next. So I had John Orand, my good friend from Puck News, simply the absolute best when it comes to sports media and sports business, writing, reporting, and opining of anybody out there. He's phenomenal. Not to mention he's from here. He's a big DC sports fan, so I love having him on to talk about that. But we talked a little bit. This was last Friday about the soccer, and I'm going to cut that part out because it's a bit dated. He expected a pretty massive audience. I don't think he expected 60 million people to watch, 63 million people to watch the World Cup final. But there were a lot of other topics, including things like the Seattle Seahawks sale, the NBA schedule, because LeBron's basically holding up, and a number of other things that we got to. And so this is how that conversation went. So I was reading this morning that Adam Silver is a little bit perturbed that LeBron hasn't made his decision yet about where he's going to play, because as we've talked about, this $76 billion deal that the NBA did with about 45 different networks, that they're trying to put their schedule together. Man, LeBron is still the biggest needle mover, or one of them in the game. Silver said he can't put together the schedule until LeBron commits to a team.
It's true. I mean, think about how many times the Lakers were on last year, and he has a lot of mouths to feed between NBC, ESPN, and Amazon. So, but the idea of LeBron still being a needle mover, I mean, it seems like yesterday, but geez, it was like a quarter century ago when we were cheering for the pudgy MJ with the Wizards, and that place was sold out every single game, and he moved the needle back then, and he was turned into a sort of a jump shooter, and we never made the playoffs, but it was still able to move the needle. That's sort of where LeBron is right now.
Does the NBA Summer League do ratings or not?
Not really.
Yeah.
It did in my house. I mean, how excited are you?
When
I saw that the first two games, like that's this AJ Devonta guy is like.
But these are Summer League games against players who aren't going to be in the league primarily.
I know, but the fan in me is like,
all right.
Trey Johnson looking like the best player on the court. I was like, wow. Well, they're like, I have us in the finals right now.
I've minimized, belittled, and made sport of those that have gotten super excited about AJ Devonta because of two Summer League games. Because you and I both remember. So many things meant nothing years ago, but this NBA Summer League phenomena, and I'm glad to hear, honestly, I am glad to hear it doesn't do very well in the ratings. That gives me some faith in my fellow man NBA fans. But man, that thing has 15 years ago, we never had a conversation about the NBA Summer Leagues. Never. No,
I wouldn't even think of putting one of my players in the summer league back then.
Right.
But, not only is it about the games, but from I have never been, but I keep getting told that I need to go because it becomes almost like a trade show for NBA NBA executive level folks that are just kind of there walking around and easy to to talk to. It's gone beyond just sort of fans watching games. So the entire business of the NBA sort of moves out to Vegas for about a week or so.
Look, that's about Vegas as much as it is anything else, more likely than not. All right, tell me about
that's actually an irrefutable point right there.
What's the future of the Major League Baseball All-Star Game?
Oh, I just had Evan Drellick on my podcast and we were talking about this. The game last week was horrifically boring. A couple of first inning runs, and the players aren't really competing. Growing up, I'm an Orioles fan. So I was a AL guy. I hated the NL. There's no hatred of the NL. It's the same league. It's just called different things. The one thing about baseball though is, the NFL can't figure out the Pro Bowl. and the NBA has tried to figure out what to do with its All-Star game, and could have caught on something here with the international stuff that it did this year, and hockey has been tooling around with things. Baseball, it's the OG of All-Star games. Fox, which carries the All-Star game, and MLB, they like to tinker with it, but they like the whole concept about the All-Star game. So the future of the All-Star game is that it's going to continue as you see it for at least the next 3 years until the media deal. And I would expect after that they don't, baseball and Fox, more importantly, they don't view this All-Star game as a problem. It brings in a pretty healthy viewership for Fox. They're able to sell ads around it. They're able to take clients out and schmooze with them at the All-Star game. And so it works. The business of it works, and it hasn't fallen to the point where fans are turning on it like they turned on the Pro Bowl for the NFL or the NBA All-Star game.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. It's the actual the game itself is played like the game, is played, whereas the NBA All-Star game's a joke, and the NFL's turned it into flag or whatever, it's become. The Nats and the season they have had, and the challenges with watching them if you don't have Xfinity, if you've got YouTube TV, etc. Do you have any idea how that's going for them? They've had a surprising season, but is anybody watching?
I have not been able to see what viewership numbers are, to be perfectly honest.
Okay.
This is the one of the things to look at. So I have no clue whether they're doing well or not. But one of the things that I find interesting is even with an RSN, you're able to hit casual fans and potentially grow a fan base.
Right.
One of the reasons that these teams like to put their games on broadcast, like local broadcast stations, like you're watching a CSI rerun, and then there's this game, I may as well keep watching it, and it's a way to grow an audience. Well, if you're going to subscribe to the WashingtonNationals.com and view the stream, you got to be a fan, right? And so that's I do wonder, with the demise of all the RSNs, with the demise of all these local rights, I wonder how that really is going to affect the gate, and how that's going to affect other aspects of what's going on. I can tell you that at the halfway point, baseball, by every metric, is doing well. Their TV ratings are up pretty considerably. Attendance is at its highest point in a decade. Sponsorship dollars, I'm talking all business side and not on the field play, but the business metrics for the sponsorship dollars are up considerably this year. So nothing is suggesting that overall baseball is having a problem, because what's happening with the Nats is not unique to DC. It's happening all over the country. So it's just something to be mindful of, and to keep your eye on it, because the all of streaming, like if you're going to watch it on streaming, you're a hardcore fan.
Yeah, sure. All right. Last thing that I had on my list, and that is the Seahawks sale. I know it's still pending approval, but $9.6 billion, John, 3 years after Snyder sold to Josh Harris and 20-something limited partners for just over $6 billion. You know what? It looks like right now Josh Harris and company got a really good deal.
They did, but when Josh Harris bought the team, they set a record.
I know, and nobody else wanted to pay it other than him.
Yeah, and so there are a couple of things at play here, and I'm going to get the first thing out, that if you ask me a follow-up question, I'm not going to be able to answer, because my knowledge base on this is sort of a mile wide and an inch deep. But
okay.
there have been sort of some tax advantages that have gone through that sort of when you buy a sports franchise, like you pay, there are tax advantages to doing it. So these big numbers are mitigated a little bit by the savings on the other end. On top of that, a couple of years ago, all these leagues started allowing private equity, and so that helped. So the problem with the prices being where they are right now is that there are only so many individuals that have that kind of money.
Right.
So they need help in order to do it. And there's a ton of private equity out there. I just came back from New York. I was in New York after Philly. I went up to New York. There's so much PE money that's looking to get into sports. I mean, somebody's launching a horse racing league, and people are dying to give him money. All the different pickleball leagues that are out there. There's just really smart money going after these things because there are only so many places to get in sports. And if you want to be part of the lucky 100 and get into a sports team ownership, or be part of the lucky 32 and get into the NFL, I mean, that's when that comes available, then you do it. So there are a lot of things conspiring to make this happen. But the idea that Seattle went for $3 billion more than the Commanders, when the Commanders are like a proud old franchise, and I mean, you want to compare franchises, I would imagine the Commanders are more valuable than the Seattle Seahawks. That is another one of those numbers that take your breath away.
Yeah, I had somebody who I know very well in the overall ownership group of our team, and he just texted me, Seattle. Like Seattle, like it's not DC, all due respect. The purchaser it's not a private equity firm. It's not a hedge fund. It's not foreign money. It is an individual. I understand he's in that business. He also came from Sun Microsystems, but the NFL is yet to have an actual private equity firm or a hedge fund or something similar to that actually take ownership of one of its teams.
Well, the NFL does. All of the leagues have rules in place to where they do not want private equity. It can only take up to like a 10% stake.
It's 10%. I think in the NFL, right? Yeah.
Yeah, they don't want private equity running an NFL team like a private equity company. Let's strip this down. Let's strip that down and sell the assets off. So that's all of the leagues are trying to keep that at bay as much as they can.
All right, let's finish up with this. Give me the next big thing that's coming in sports business or sports media. What story are you looking forward to covering?
So I'll give you a boring answer first, and I'll give you a good one. But the NFL media rights, they want to renew those media rights, they have an out in their contracts at the end of the decade after the 2029 season. And so they're basically all of the different networks are going to have to pay up and get them. And sort of how the NFL handles this is just a big story that is sort of never ending.
Right.
But I hear people turning off the podcast now, Kevin. I apologize.
No, I'm interested.
There's a knock-on effect to that I'm particularly interested in, and this is happening as cord cutting continues to happen. Disney and NBC and CBS are not finding the same amount of money in streaming as they do in the old traditional television.
Right.
And so all of a sudden they're stuck with all of these bills, and they're going to have to cut costs. And there's going to be a bunch of properties that you're going to be surprised will A, not find a deal, or B, have to take a pretty big haircut in order to move forward, because all that matters right now to these networks are the NFL, which takes care of the fall, the NBA, which is set for the next 10 years, of course, but that takes care of the winter. I think baseball is doing okay. I think certain college football is doing okay, and then everything else is like, who knows? Like if I'm Brian Rolapp and the PGA Tour, I'm a little bit concerned because it's sort of afternoon programming at a time when there's no cable operator that is paying extra money for a channel because it happens to have the Connecticut Open or something like that. So that I think that trying to follow that and trying to figure out what leagues fall on the good side of that line and what leagues fall on the bad side of that line is sort of my job for the next 2-3 years.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, remember, I think everybody but people like you were surprised when kind of ESPN said no more to MLB even, right?
No, exactly. Although they wanted to get out of that because they were paying too much for that deal. I just wrote a deal about Bundesliga, the German soccer league.
Yeah.
That ESPN was paying $30 million for, and per year, $30 million per year for German soccer that it would stream. Well, they went to Versant, which is those channels. They own Golf Channel and they own USA. They're the old Comcast channels that spun off. And Versant's paying them $20 million per year. And so in order to make that up, they then went to Telemundo to get I think $8 or $9 million per year or whatever. But so and you're starting to see like ESPN saying we can't afford to pay you that, and even Versant was like, well, we can't afford to pay you what ESPN paid you. So these leagues are having to be as unique.
Yeah.
They have to do whatever they can to try to make it up of that money.
None of this will affect the NFL in our lifetime, though. Those numbers are going to continue to go up.
You know what I said about the FIFA? My thing about the NFL is like at every point in the last 20 years, if they had done the exact opposite, it would still be as popular as it is now. The NFL is unique as a property, and it doesn't have to worry for the foreseeable future.
No.
The one thing that would worry me if I'm the NFL though is if they charge too much money and send, say, Fox out of business, that if they lose some of these bidders, I'm not certain that YouTube is willing to jump in and pay what Fox, CBS, and everybody else is paying for all that tonnage of games. They just want like Netflix is very happy. We have 5 games. That's all we need to make our subscribers happy.
You know how we've always had the conversation about over the air games, and the NFL's games should be over the air, and obviously a lot of them aren't now. I don't even know if that conversation is as important. That's my intuitive thought. Tell me if I'm wrong. I'm now expecting half of NFL games 10 years from now or even more to be streamed.
Who's your carrier?
YouTube TV.
Yes. I mean, how great is YouTube? So I turn on YouTube. All of a sudden, as soon as I turn it on, it knows me. And so there's a big square that says, Maryland basketball.
Oh, yeah. It's all right there. Yeah.
I click on it. I don't know if it's CBS. I don't know if it's Peacock.
And it doesn't
matter. I don't know if it's NBC. It doesn't even matter. It's an unbelievable way to watch now. And so I have to believe that's sort of the wave of the future. However, if you take a look at any statistic, broadcast TV still brings in many, many, many more viewers than streaming and certainly than cable. So the trend to streaming is happening. My head's not in the sand with it, but if I were a sports property, I would be falling over myself to get my stuff on broadcast television as much as I can over the next 5 years or so.
John has a podcast called The Varsity, which you can get wherever you get your podcasts, at @Orand_Puck, to a link to his Puck News newsletter. I absolutely recommend it. You're the best. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the game Sunday.
You know what? My favorite part is that you asked me to come on. You're like, it's not going to be long like every other time.
Yeah, I say that to you all the time. But you know what? There are a couple of people that say that to me every once in a while. And my response is, it's not my fault. It's yours. You're too good.
Are you kidding? I have too much fun. You like sports business. You really like sports business.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on, Kevin.
That was John Orand from a few days ago on my podcast. Love John. He's really good. At John_Orand on X. All right. When we come back, we'll get to the RG3 video on social media from over the weekend. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show on the Team 980, theteam980.com. Don't forget, you can watch this show on our YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button and hit the like button when you get there. So over this past weekend, Robert Griffin III put out a social media post whereby he was dressed in a full 2012 Redskins number 10, his jersey uniform. It was white on white, by the way, the white tops and the white bottoms, if you were wondering. He had his Rookie of the Year trophy behind him. That's what people have told me it was. Is that true, Max? That was his Rookie of the Year trophy that was sitting behind him, and then he grabs it and puts it on the floor in front of his seat.
Yeah, that's what it looked like it was. I'm pretty sure that, yeah.
That's what everybody says it was, so I'll take everyone's word that that's what he had there. And then there's no speaking parts. There's some music playing, but there's him with the helmet, by the way, with the logo on it, the old logo. And he's sitting, he's looking upset, off-put, annoyed, pensive. I don't know. Just basically turns his head to the side and then posted on the social media video is, quote, preparing for my Netflix documentary about why they kept running me when I had only one leg against Seattle in 2012, closed quote. So let me just first ask you, Max, because whenever I see this stuff, we can get fooled. That was actually his Instagram. That actually was RG3. That actually was a real video, correct?
Correct. That is Bobby Three Sticks. I'm staring at the video right now. I know his face, seen it for years. That's him.
Right. This was not AI created.
He also posted another one this time, yesterday or 2 days ago, something like that, with his wife, Greta. And it says, us preparing for a Netflix documentary on how many bad looks you get in an interracial marriage. So Bob is very up to date on this trend.
Well, look, he's pitching for, a Netflix series. I mean, it would certainly be interesting, a Netflix series on what happened in the Seattle game. Of course, what we all know, the first video, as I described, what he was referring to, for those that don't know, and it has been 13 years, over 13 years, crazy that it's been that long. He was referring to an infamous game in franchise history, the playoff game in January of 2013, following that amazing 2012 season where he had, at that point, the greatest rookie season for a quarterback in NFL history. It would be topped by Jaden Daniels in 2024, when his team, our NFC East champion Washington Redskins, lost a playoff game at FedEx Field to the Seattle Seahawks, 24-14. A game, by the way, in which Washington led 14-0, and it was on his second touchdown pass that he may have initially or once again injured the knee that was injured a few weeks earlier. The game was notable, as we all know, because in the fourth quarter, down 21-14, the lead blown, Robert tried to go down to field what was a very low snap from the center. I think it was Will Montgomery was the center, deep in his own territory. And as he bent down and planted his right foot to grab the ball, his right knee buckled. And it didn't look pretty on an ugly turf, not even much grass, a lot of dirt. We know what the turf problems were over the years at FedEx, especially when you get to January. He collapsed in a heap, in a clump of dirt on that field, and he was done physically at that point. A completely torn ACL, a completely torn LCL, and more meniscus damage, everything. And look, that play and the lead up to that play has been discussed, debated, documented, not Netflix style, not 30 for 30 style, but over and over for 13 years, since it happened. It will go down certainly as one of the most memorable games in franchise history for the wrong reasons. It's going to go down along with the Super Bowl loss to the Raiders, the Clint Longley game, the Aikman to Rocket Ismail game. This is in that list, and there's a list of memorable heartbreaks, and this is probably at the top of that list. It was the lead up, though, to that final blow, the reaching for that low snap and going down in a clump on the field at FedEx. The lead up is as important and would be very interesting to hear a Netflix or a 30 for 30 or whatever document it. By the way, I've said for 13 years, or certainly 11 or 12 years, if they ever do, a special, a 30 for 30 on Robert Griffin III, it's going to be fascinating because, look, it is a great story. It's like Heisman Trophy winner, second pick in the draft, meteoric rookie season rise, and then an almost immediate fall. I mean, at the height, and then literally within a year and a half, he's done for the most part. But it's the lead up to that final play in the Seattle game that will be the most interesting part. And then the immediate aftermath, the surgery, and then the conversation he had with Mike Shanahan and Kyle Shanahan and others in that infamous meeting that even Robert has admitted actually took place. Now, I think there are some differences in what happened. Mike told us in a very famous, sort of documenting blow by blow, the Robert Griffin the third saga here, that he came in, he wrote on a whiteboard the 21 plays he would not run anymore, and said a lot of things that made Mike and everybody in that room, Matt LaFleur, Kyle Shanahan, and Mike, believe that this had come straight from Dan. Not that Robert didn't want it, but that Dan had approved it. Dan was a big part of all of this. But, the lead up, back in that moment was the first blow was in the Baltimore game. Early December, FedEx Field, exciting game. Robert gets hit by Haloti Ngata in the middle of the field, and that hit results in an LCL sprain, which cost him the next game against Cleveland, and there was some thought he could be out for even longer than that. And that's really where the drama truly begins. The Ngata hit. Doctors ruled him out of that game almost immediately for the next game in Cleveland. Called him not only out of that game, but it would be a reassessment a week later as to what would happen after the Cleveland game. But he did not want out of the next game with the sprained LCL, which was a pretty serious injury and one that he needed to kind of be protected from himself in that moment. He wanted to play. One thing you can't say about RG3 is that he wasn't a baller and he wasn't a competitor, because he was. He was. And I'm being totally serious. Like, you think back to some of those games, he was a battler. He was a fearless player. And he didn't want Kirk Cousins to get a chance against the Browns. So despite not practicing all week long leading up to the Cleveland game, despite being ruled out by the medical people, he did his best to play in that game. According to many over the years, Mike Shanahan on this show in a 2-hour, blow by blow of everything that happened when he was the head coach here, from his perspective. What happened was, before that Cleveland game, RG3 took the field in a personal workout to prove that he was healthy enough to go before that 1:00 kick against Cleveland. And the owner, Dan Snyder, he was convinced, because he's brilliant and he knows football, and he certainly had gone to med school for several years, to identify that my guy, Robert, is ready to play, Mike. And he went to Mike and said, Robert's ready to play. He's healthy. He says he can go. And Mike looked at Dan, and this was the way Mike described it, and said, he's not playing. He's been ruled out by our team doctors. Hey, Dan, athletes always want to play. Competitors always want to play. The doctors ruled him out. He didn't practice. He's not playing. Dan was not happy. And by extension, once Dan told Robert, he wasn't happy. And that's where things got interesting, because then the game happened in Cleveland. And this would be a big part of any sort of Netflix documentary about this. By the way, I think it's totally worthy of a multi-episode documentary. This was a fascinating, meteoric, and immediate rise and fall like we've never seen before. And I mean, you'll come up with examples, but the game was played and Kirk Cousins lit the Browns up in a game they had to have. They couldn't afford to lose another game or they'd be knocked out of the playoff race. So this was a critical game. Kirk threw for 329 yards, 2 touchdowns, and Washington rolled the Browns 38-21. And after that game, things happened that really, really irked not only the coaching staff, but many in the locker room. RG3 held his own press conference following that game. Unprecedented, not scheduled by PR people. You know, after an NFL game, it's the quarterback and the head coach. They hold press conferences, and then the beat reporters and all the other reporters that are there, they descend on the locker room and get players kind of that way one-on-one. But it's the coach and the quarterback that actually hold, you know, a podium press conference. But it's the quarterback that played in the game, not the quarterback that didn't play in the game. But Robert held his own press conference, and he was not happy about not playing, and he expressed his unhappiness. After the team had won a critical game with their backup quarterback, he made it about himself. He was pissed. He was not happy. And from that moment on, the relationship between Robert and certainly his head coach and some of the other coaches changed. Now, did they see signs of some of the kind of importance, self-absorption, prior to that? Yes. But that was the moment. What are you doing? We just won a critical football game. Without you, thank God, because you got us into this position with your incredible play, but you don't go hold a press conference and be angry. So the next week leading up to what was their next game and a crucial game, they had to win. They had to win out to get to the postseason. So they had Philly and Dallas remaining. And the lead up to the Philadelphia game was Robert Griffin's playing, but the doctors were not thrilled about it. But they cleared him, even though he was struggling in practice during the course of the week, as Mike told us. I forgot a big part of the Cleveland game. Kirk Cousins didn't run anywhere near as much as Robert ran. The zone read was not a big part of the game plan. There was a lot of play action, a lot of bootleg, and that's what Kirk did well. Robert did other stuff well. Kirk told me a few months ago when I had him on the show, in going back to that game, he said, ironically, it's not true that there weren't, that the zone read was not in the game plan. It was in the game plan. There were just, the reads weren't to keep it. It was to hand it off to Alfred Morris. He said, now, was there as much as there was with Robert? Probably not, but it wasn't out of the game plan, which is what it was accused of being, that the Shanahans had a completely different game plan for Kirk in that game than for Robert. Robert was upset. Robert's group upset that he was running, in his mind's eye, a different offense. They were putting him at risk, but not Cousins at risk. Two different style quarterbacks, obviously. But Kirk claims the zone read was in. The Philadelphia game, he did not look right. At one point, Mike told the story. He was limping to the sidelines on a zone read keeper, and Mike immediately pulled him to the side and said, if you can't run that play the right way, I'm pulling you right now and putting Kirk back into the game and putting Kirk into the game. And Robert sort of shaped up and ran it much better after that. He wasn't right after the LCL sprain against Baltimore. He played exceptionally well, even though he wasn't completely healthy in the season finale win over the Cowboys, where Alfred Morris rushed for 200 yards in that game. Robert, if you recall, only threw for 100 yards. He was 9 of 18 for 100 yards. He rushed for 63 yards, though, and he was a big part of it. Look, Morris feasted that year because RG3 was a threat to run the ball on almost every play. The presentation of him as a runner in that offense made it so much easier for everybody else. I think we all understand that. And of course, him running that kind of style offense, Kaepernick that year, Russell Wilson, who they played in the playoff game, all of a sudden we had dual threat quarterbacks coming out of the woodwork, and we've had that ever since. The claims back then, remember, this is a fad. This is the Wildcat. This is something else. It'll go away. Here we are 13 years later, and the zone read is still a big part of a lot of offensive attacks with quarterbacks who are mobile. Robert made all of that possible in 2012 because he was such a threat as a runner. And then, he also was a threat with his arm because he could throw the ball, and he could throw it deep, and he could throw it accurately. But the playoff game itself, there's a lot of, competing opinions about what happened. And I'll get to that when we come back. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com. So we continue with the RG3 infamous 2012 season end and into the playoff game. So, look, RG3 was not completely healthy entering the playoff game against Seattle in January of 2013, but it was a playoff game, and there was no way he wasn't playing in his own mind or in the owner's mind. That's for sure. Doctors cleared him, and it was the playoffs. For those that have said over the years the organization had a responsibility to protect him even before that game, He had played the final 2 regular season games of the year. They had clinched the title, the division title. They were hosting a playoff game. He was cleared by doctors, plural, including the orthopedic king, Dr. James Andrews. And it was the playoffs. Come on. You keep him out of that Cleveland game because he's got a legitimate LCL sprain and he can't play the next week. Not the playoff game after he's played 2 games in a row. Now, the game itself. That second quarter touchdown pass to our good friend Logan Paulson, which gave Washington a 14-0 lead. And by the way, they were dominating. The next possession was the key possession because Seattle had a third down that looked like it wasn't going to get converted, but it got converted, and they ended up going down and kicking a field goal, I think, to kind of hang in the game. But it looked like a blowout early. It looked like Washington was heading to Atlanta for a divisional round playoff game. And it was after that touchdown pass that he came down awkwardly on the knee. And from that point on, we know that he told Trent Williams, per the NFL Films, mic'd up segment, that, hey, man, don't say anything, but I hurt my knee on that play. My knee's messed up. So he knew he was hurt, but he's a battler. He's a competitor. And there were some plays that looked awkward. There was certainly the play in which he kept it on his own read and was literally limping so badly that he was almost carrying his leg to the sideline. And it was after that play where they went in at halftime and Mike said, sorry, but this is according to Mike, Kirk Cousins is going to play the second half. We can't put you out there. You can't move. And he wasn't in that meeting, and they came out right before the third quarter started, according to Mike Shanahan and others, with Dr. James Andrews saying, Mike, he's fine. He's good to go. The reason it looked bad is the brace wasn't in the right spot. It was the brace that was making him hobble that badly to the sideline. Cousins was ready to go. Mike heard what the doctor said to him. It's the playoffs. It's 14-13 at halftime. Robert went back out there. And the rest is history. The rest is history. Now, what happened afterwards? The injury, his being very upset that he was not protected when, in fact, he didn't do anything to protect himself. The owner didn't do anything to protect him. The doctors didn't do anything to protect him. Long list. And again, I keep coming back to the same thing. This was a playoff game. Phillip Rivers played on a torn ACL as a young quarterback in Foxborough in the AFC Championship game. And, I sound like I'm defending Mike because I have his side of the story and several others to back that part of the story up, that he was cleared. And Dr. Andrews said it's okay. Now, there was that exchange between Andrews and Shanahan that got a little bit confusing in the Baltimore game after he got hit by Haloti Ngata, and he went back into the game after Kirk played a little bit. Then Kirk came back into the game. It was not in that situation just the head coach's responsibility to protect him. And those that say, look, the bigger issue is that they had a better chance to win the game had Kirk Cousins played the second half anyway. I think that's true to a certain extent. But try telling Dan Snyder and Robert Griffin III and everybody around Robert Griffin III that Mike Shanahan picked Kirk Cousins at halftime because he thought he gave him a better chance to win. Mike probably wouldn't have survived had they not won the game. Look, he offered his resignation afterwards anyway. The rest of the year, the all-in for week one, the total self-absorption when it came to social media and hashtags, the rest of that is history. Did the injury impact the rest of his career? Absolutely. Was he going to be a great quarterback? I don't think so. He was flawed. He was limited in so many ways. And what they always said about him, I know the answer to every question. You don't have to give them to me, was always going to be a problem. Anyway, I'd love to see a Netflix special on it. I don't know that it would go the way he thinks it would go if everybody were honest on camera. All right. We do have some reads to do, don't we? Yeah, I did want to tell you. I'm sorry. I did want to tell you about my guys at Foley Mechanical. If you've got any HVAC system issues that are giving you problems, I promise you Foley Mechanical is the 100% the place to go. We had issues 8 months ago. Dan Foley came out, dealt with my wife, dealt with me directly. No, salesman, no anything. He comes out. He owns the whole thing. This isn't, a franchise. It's not a private equity firm. He owns 100% of the company. He owns and controls the quality from the equipment to the people he hires. His team, they were so great. They handled the problem. They're professional. They're skilled. They were just great. The whole experience was just first rate. Foley Mechanical is full service, heating, air conditioning, hot water, and boilers. And they're the go-to for older homes with radiator heat, which is a real specialty. They work across the D.C., Maryland, and Virginia area, the DMV, and they proudly install Amana HVAC equipment. If your system needs help or you just want it done right, call Foley Mechanical or go to FoleyMechanical.com and tell Dan that I sent you. Also, just want to mention that all of our football talk on the show today on the Team 980 is presented by Xfinity. Score the most reliable Wi-Fi, one price, 5 years guaranteed. Xfinity, imagine that. Chris Russell's next.